talking about success in the professional world. We're talking about, they're like, we want them to be happy, so that happy, you have to come from the space of being aware of your emotions and then be able to manage those emotions. Now let's get on to our next topic, where we will be talking about some day-to-day, practical tips of how we could help our children get there, and including ourselves. Because like you rightly said in the beginning, it's all about modeling. If you're not doing it, our children will never learn it. So over to you.
So I guess how do we build emotional intelligence in them? Every view all our interactions with our children, or whether it be meltdowns they're having, or when they come home they're sad, or when they come home those are moments in time where we use as teachable moments. So if we're talking about it, we look at it and go, okay, how can I use this moment as a teachable moment? And please don't think parenting is very busy. So I'm not asking you to use every moment as a teachable moment, but it's actually looking and saying, if you are doing this 80% of the time, 75 to 80% of the time, then that's great. You know what? Peanut butter or beans on toast sometimes is fine for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because sometimes life can get busy. So I'm not putting any judgment on it. It's just saying that ultimately, if you can use the moments you've got as teachable moments. So for our young children, particularly before most probably 6 years of age, if they're having tantrums or they're having a hard time dealing with things, they don't know how to regulate themselves. So they will get so worked up, and they're basically, it's a prefrontal cortex. The amygdala's hijacked. So they've taken over. The prefrontal cortex has gone offline. This is the part of the brain that's driving it now. So they need us to help regulate them. That's not saying go to your room or time out. It's actually saying, I can see you're having a really hard time. So getting down onto their level, looking into their eyes and saying, I can see you're having a really hard time. I can see that you're really upset. What's going on? If they can tell you in language, they might not be able to, because when that happens, when the amygdala hijack happens, often language goes. So they don't have, they can't express it in words, and they may not be able to express how they're feeling in words either, because they don't have the words to express it right then. If they don't have an emotional vocabulary, then they're angry, and fear and anger. Fear goes to anger very quickly, particularly in our societies. It's not okay to feel fear, or if you show fear, particularly as adults, we often don't show fear, because fear is a sign of weakness. So what we'll actually go to is anger. So often when people, anger is a much more powerful emotion than fear. Anger is a much more powerful external emotion. Fear is a much more internally powerful emotion for the person who's experiencing it. But because we're herd animals, and our children get this even from when they're little. Like if you think a baby relies completely on its mother, completely. So they are reliant on us. So they don't want to be discarded, or they want to please us. They want to be helpful. So if they think they've done something wrong, or if they're fearful about that, that's going to have to be, again, how do we settle them? How do we calm them? So it's making sure in those moments, I can see you're really angry, or I understand it would have been really hard, and I would have been angry too if my brother pushed those things over when I'd spent 2 hours building it. What can we do? So again, it's articulating it for young children particularly. And if they're sobbing, it's going, okay, sit with me, or being there and helping them. So have their hand possibly on your chest, if it's safe to do so, not if they're banging and lashing out, give them space if that's happening. But if they're there, and hold them, because what will happen is they will, and again, when we go into those situations, because those can be triggering for us as well. As adults, as parents, it can be triggering for us. So if that's the case, go, you know what? Right now, I need to be the calm place in their storm. How can I do that? Is it by taking a few deep breaths? Is it by, and it may be that at the time you've said something, they've come back, and they've sort of like, it's gone, if you're going head to head, it's getting worse. And it's almost like going like that. Before it goes like that, you, as the adult, you go, you know what, right now, mummy's cranky, you're cranky. I'm going to my room. We're going to talk about this in a little while. So
Yeah.
this most probably won't work for children under 6,
6,
but
yeah.
over 6, you can actually say, you know what, right now,
We
we're
can't have
both
a
cranky.
conversation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is not working. We will come back in 10, like if you look at it and say, we'll come back in this much time, or we'll come back and I'm going to go over there, or I'm going to go running, or do what, making sure they're safe if they're with their other parent,
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever. But just so that you actually disconnect from that situation. Because what we are modeling if we don't disconnect, and we don't, what we're modeling if we don't disconnect and tell them that. So again, it's explicitly articulating that to them. This is why I'm doing that. What they'll feel is abandoned. If you don't say that sort of stuff first and you just walk off, the child will feel abandonment, and they may follow you because they're going, I don't understand, like what's gone on? I'm all of this. Absolutely. So again, it's the explicit explanation of this is what's happening. And also going, you know what, I can see you're angry. It's okay to be angry. Go be angry in your room. Once you get all the angry out, then we can come back and talk about it. So it's giving them a way to say, go and do this, or go and jump on the trampoline. It's giving them a healthy way to do that. It's so how do we teach our kids? It's actually saying, and so for example, if your young lady, if your daughter was going to school and you knew she had a basketball game, and you could say to her, you know, oh, are you looking forward to the basketball game today? Oh yeah, that's great, and I think we're going to win. And say, oh yeah, that's great. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it's a draw. Those sorts of things happen. Are you going to, so you don't always, so you talk to them about different outcomes. It may not always be the way that you think it's going to be. Yeah. But as long as you do your best, that's all we can ever ask for our children, is that they do their best, that they give it their all, that they keep trying, that they don't walk off the court in the middle of a game. So it's that sort of stuff to say, you know what, well done, you did your best today. Right. It's again about developing a growth mindset. So instead of saying, oh, great job, you won, or whatever it was, wow, I really like the way you did that. Tell me about it. So we're actually asking them about different things so they can come back and be the expert, but they also feel competent. So what it's around self-determination theory. Ryan and DC talk about self-determination theory. It's a psychological concept, but it's talking about children need to feel competent. So they need to feel that they could possibly explain things, or they're competent, that they have autonomy, so they have some choice, and relatedness, which is connection. So competence, autonomy, and relatedness. So if you can, I guess for children, what can they do around the house? What could they do, whether it be chores or whether it be things like that they might pick up their clothes, or they might sort the clothes into 2 piles of white or dark, or they might go and do something else, because that's actually showing, you know what, they could set the table for dinner. They could help you chop something up for dinner. Like if they've got those skills, they could do that, because then you can talk about different things. Again, when I talk to families and I work with families, I say it's about keeping a connection. When we've got a connection with our children from when they're little, that's how we'll keep a connection with our teenagers. You can't just start and go, oh, Lord, they've just hit 14 and I wished I'd talk to them more because I want them to talk to me now. So it's actually about training them and getting them to understand, you know what, you can come and talk to me about anything. Yeah. And that is okay. You can tell me anything. It might make me angry at times to hear about your behavior, but I will always love you. So the unconditional positive regard, I love you. I might not have liked the way you behaved, cheating on a test, or punching somebody in the nose, or lying to me. I don't like the behavior, but I love you. So I will always love you, and you can tell me anything. Right. Right.
So yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, it goes. I really liked your point where you talked about, the competence piece, because here, I don't think it was, or maybe it happened when we were younger also. But I was not raised like that though. But out of love, um, we parents tend to do everything for our children. And I talk about this repeatedly to, fellow parents, and even in my, videos. Don't do it. You know, it's not love. You are actually telling your child that you're incapable of doing something, because they're not contributing. You know, and I sometimes tell my sorry to cut you off, but I tell my fellow mothers that, I'm a monster mother. If I'm working in the house, if I'm cleaning up, my daughter has to clean up. It could be
yeah,
just the table. She doesn't have to do anything else. Just clear up your table, just clear up your bed. But you can't be sitting and playing a game while I am, doing XYZ.
mm,
uh, we are both equal residents of this house, and we're partners to making this house beautiful. So please, do your bit. I am not doing it.
and that,
Yeah,
Chica, that is so important because when they go out to live with other people, that like around our kids now travel around the world. Children
correct.
travel around the world. They'll be possibly share housing in
Yeah,
other countries or working, and it's not okay to live like a pig.
yeah,
They don't, that they need, and to contribute to the household of, you know what, there might be a roster in a household, in a share household, where everybody's got to either take a turn cooking or washing up. It's actually looking and saying, it's because we are, if we do everything for our children, we're robbing them of
correct,
the opportunity to actually be more independent.
correct.
This is what that's why I like the competence, autonomy, and the connection. Like, it's looking and saying, how can we help our children to be independent? Because
Right,
again, this is about their emotional and psychological well-being and their mental health. If they don't have inside them the thought of, I can do it, it's like the little engine that could, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can,
right.
I could, and he got over.
Yeah,
And the problem we've got is that at the moment, our children aren't given those opportunities. And this is what I've been seeing for the past 30 years as a teacher. It's been more and more going down the the down the road of that parents actually do everything for them or move every obstacle out of the way. That's not what life is like.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
people do that for us in the workplace? No.
yeah.
People don't clear the obstacles out of the way for us unless you are exceptionally, and that's exceedingly wealthy in any country or society. Nobody's going to clear the obstacles out of the way for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they need, and that's why children are having these, because they often go away to uni. I know 2019, before COVID happened, there was a study that was done at Harvard and Yale, and these were freshmen. So these were students who were in the first year of university. They had all the financial resources, like these are expensive universities, and
Mm,
they got in. And the parents actually, they were asked in 6 months in, what do you wish your parents, like your parents have given you everything, you've got the money to be here, etc., etc. What do you wish they would have taught you before coming? And these students
mm,
said, could they have taught us to deal with loneliness?
right.
I wish they taught us to deal with disappointment and not
Mm,
getting our own way and feeling difficult, and how to make friends, like that not everybody's going to like us, because they came from very wealthy, very
mm.
protected families
Protected families. Yeah.
where they didn't actually have to have people not like them, or they didn't have to sit with discomfort. And the thing
Yeah.
is, we need to teach our children life is not always going to be comfortable. Life is not always fair.
Yeah. And
We actually have to pick ourselves up, dust
exactly.
ourselves off,
Yeah.
and
And get
get
going.
on with it.
Yeah. And I look at it in another way, Carrie. I mean, I know we're digressing, but uh, what I'm saying is that you're robbing your child of the opportunity, the moment where he or she could, believe, oh, you know what? Look at what a beautiful table I set for dinner. But look at what you're doing it to yourself. None of the mothers are in their 20s, right? You're in your 30s, you're in your 40s. And
Mm,
think about yourself for a moment, because that again is modeling self-care,
mm.
And
And
I mean,
it's knowing they are going to do something. Again, it's giving them the opportunity for you to say to them, thank you so much. I
exactly.
really appreciated
Yeah,
you setting the table, or I really appreciated you picking up your clothes or cleaning up the room,
right.
because they are not always going to have people that might do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that belief in themselves, I mean, today, um, I mean, I don't want to make this a rant about my journey, but I feel the only thing I can probably not do is maybe put a space shuttle into space, you know, because that's the only thing I don't know how to do it. Everything else you
Mm,
teach me, I'll do it. It's not rocket science. It's just being able to put your mind to it. The things that I don't do are things which I've decided I don't want to do,
yep.
but it's not like I cannot do it. So there's a difference.
Yes.
Anyhow, so we've talked about articulating, using the words. We've talked about holding them when they are in a moment of distress, and we've talked about, how to give them more responsibility and talk about disappointments, right?
Mhm.
So, what else?
So, if you were looking at how can we teach them about emotional intelligence, it might be watching different movies together
Mm-hmm.
and saying and stopping and looking at people's faces and saying, "Oh, what does that character look like?" Or why? And if there's a character that's sad in the movie, oh, why do you think that they might be sad?
Mm,
Or things like that. So it's reading books together. It's looking at movies together. So it's giving them something again that's not concrete so much, because
mm-hmm.
it's not there right that they can touch it, but they can talk about it. So again, it's talking about things and understanding that you give them all these examples. Oh, that's what sad looks like, or that's what frustrated looks like, or okay, I get it that that's what this looks like and how they dealt with that. So it's again looking and saying, okay, what are the values we want to teach our kids? What are the skills we want to teach our kids? And how can we look at movies and books that will help do that? Okay, obviously age appropriate. And
Right.
again, it's finding those things and saying, and by all means, I have a list of books, so I'm happy to email you those that you could give out to people
Please. Yeah, that would be
as
helpful.
well. Because to talk about anger or sadness or friendships or bullying, or looking at that and going, and how can we help our children be more grateful? How can
Mm,
we help them be more? Because sometimes when we do everything for them,
mm.
they don't learn how to be grateful.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Our children are often blessed with lots of people to do things for them,
Right,
and they don't realize how fortunate they are.
right.
And so it's about looking and going, you know what? There are other people in the world who don't have it as good as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding and saying, I am grateful for what I have. I have food on my table. I have a roof over my head. I have somebody who picks up my clothes or does the gardening or things like that. So there's all those things about how can we teach them kindness. You do it through modeling, but also through looking at books, at looking at if you were going on the bus together or going on a train together, and you might, oh, look at that. Isn't that kind? Somebody stood up to give that older person a seat. That's a
Mm,
lovely thing to do, isn't it?
yeah,
And so it's about using everyday interactions or everyday things that they can see and go, you know what? This makes a kinder world.
right.
This is what it means to be kind. Or even when you go and get a cup of coffee or somebody holds the door open, you say, thank you.
Thank you. Right, right, right.
Thank you very much. Again, it's about how do we interact with people? So looking and going, and not always be thinking, oh, I have to do this because I'm modeling for the child, but how do I be
Yeah,
kind?
be
How
kind.
am I how am I being kind, or how am I being considerate to others?
Yeah,
Because ultimately we are our teachers first and most we're our children's first and most important teachers.
Right.
Our children, even children who've been abused, will still love their parent
Of course. Yeah.
because there is a bond there. So that's why it's so important for us to be those positive role models for them, to actually show, you know what, yeah, I get angry sometimes. And I know I've talked to you about this, and we've talked about different things, but I got angry when Mitchell was growing up. We went to the shops together. I was tired. It was late. He wanted to look at something. I didn't realize that was going to happen. I needed to be in and out. It was almost closing time. He
Hmm.
started crying. I got angry. There was a bang like that.
Yeah.
I got louder. He got louder. He was snot and tears and things all over his face. And I just picked him up, put him under my arm, and went. Now, he was about 8. So I just took him firmly by the hand, but also then had to pick him up because he dropped to the ground.
Mm.
And I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy about that. I was angry. I was using crosswords, and I had to say in the car, when I got in the car, and he and I had both calmed down to a certain degree. He was looking out the window at the back, and I said to him, I turned before I'd started the car. I said, I'm so sorry. I used crosswords.
Mm.
That was not okay. I needed to get in and out. You wanted to do that. It's not okay. I'm so sorry. That's never, I got angry, and that's never okay for me to speak to you like that. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that. So it's actually being willing to apologize. If you,
Apologize.
again,
Yes.
as I said, 20% of the time, we're not perfect. Nobody is a perfect
Nobody is
parent.
perfect. Yeah.
Our children do not come with manuals. We're all
Unfortunately.
learning.
Yeah.
I know, that's right. So what we look at is saying, if we do make mistakes, or if those sorts of things are happening, you say, you know what? I'm so sorry. I did
Yeah.
get angry. I used crosswords. I'm really sorry about that. Can we do it? Like, we'll do that again another time, or I'll take you back to the shop at another time.
Another time.
Not right then. I wasn't going to do that
Correct.
because I
Mm.
needed to be home, but I wanted to apologize.
Yeah.
And that's critical, is it's not a sign of weakness.
Exactly. And I think it's important to apologize to our children uh, for two reasons. One, it's you're establishing that, this is an equal relationship. If I've done something wrong, I will apologize. It's not like, I'm the parent, I'm at a hierarchical, higher level, so therefore I don't need to apologize. Secondly, you're telling your child that nobody can treat you this way. And if they do, you they owe you an apology, or at least you know where to draw the line, that, okay, I am not going to be treated like this. So it sets the tone for what they can expect in relationships, what they should be
Mm.
doing in relationships. Great. So what I'm getting a sense, Carrie, is that, mostly it's about being able to articulate what you're feeling. And then how do you get to the part of managing it? Let's say our children are feeling angry and they bang the door. Then what? What's the next step? How do we teach them how
So,
to manage their emotions?
and say, I can tell you're angry, and I could tell you're angry because of the look on your face, and you slam the door. In this house, we do not slam doors
Mm-hmm.
because things might fall off the wall, or you could get your fingers stuck in them. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're now, it depends. If you, as an adult, are slamming doors when you're angry, then that could be why they're doing it.
Correct, correct.
So that's what we have to then look at and go, well, do we slam doors when we're angry? And if we don't want them to slam doors, you can say to them, look, I know you've seen me slam a door, and then you saw that picture fall off. So you have to look and go, have I modeled the behavior? And if I've modeled the behavior, am I willing to change my behavior
Mm,
so that they change theirs?
mm, mm,
Because
mm.
we can't really, it's not okay for us to ask them to do something that we're still modeling.
Correct.
So that's number one. Number two is, if they slam the door and we say, in this house we do not slam doors, so we have that boundary or that limit. I can tell you're angry. Look, do you want to rip paper, or do you want to, there are other ways. When I'm angry, this is what I do. I might
Mm-hmm.
go for a run. So you've got your ways of dealing with it as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
We then look and go, if you're angry, and it depends on the age of the child, but again, you can give them some healthy ways to get that angry out. It might be coloring in really hard, or it
Mm-hmm.
could be
Mm.
ripping up paper or popping bubble wrap,
Yeah,
or
that's very
the
helpful.
yep,
Yeah.
oh, giving or stomping on bubble
Mm.
wrap, like
Mm.
really. So it's things like that. Or it's okay to cry if you get really angry and cry. It's okay. So again, figuring out healthy, appropriate ways to express anger, because it is always, there is no right or wrong feelings.
Mm-hmm.
There are no acceptable or there are no unacceptable feelings. That feelings are data. It's what our body is giving us to tell us
Mm-hmm.
something is going on. So what we then have to
Interesting.
look at is go, okay, how do we manage that? If we're starting to feel this way,
Mm.
and it might be you start feeling butterflies in your tummy, and you're looking around and you're thinking, how can I manage that? It could be that you have so I have my mandala or my bead, and I might rub on those when I'm worried or anxious about something that I've got, that I go through and I rub my beads, or that I have it around my wrist. So I know if I'm going to have an anxious day or something like that, I might have that around my wrist, and that
Mm-hmm.
I might just rub my fingers over. So again, it's looking and saying, how can we model as adults healthy ways to deal with these emotions? Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's why we've got to be, again, we need to be able to manage our emotions
Emotions.
healthily to model those for our children. But we also then have to go and look and say, okay, what are healthy ways for children to manage that?
Mm-hmm.
And what does it look like? So it could be, as I said, ripping paper, that's anger. Or
Mm-hmm.
sadness, it could be that, you know what, you might want to go and have some quiet time
Mm-hmm.
and draw, or it could be write a letter, or it could be things like that. It's okay to be sad. You don't have to be, oh, come on, no crying. No,
Yeah.
no, it's okay to be sad.
So when we let's say, we're trying to deconstruct a particular situation. The child is angry, he or she slams the door, we walk in and say that, it's not okay to slam the door in this house, we don't do it for safety reasons. And then what would you like to do instead, to kind of express your
I
anger?
know you're angry.
Yeah.
I can tell you're
Yeah.
angry. What else? What would make you feel that?
Feel
Like,
better.
what
Yeah.
would? How could you work your anger out? Because if anger sits in your body, you're just gonna get more angry. It's
Right.
like a
Yeah.
volcano, and it will explode.
It will explode.
So we might need to move our body, or you might need to do this, or get
Mm,
that anger out in some
out.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of the reason you slam that door, because you want to show me you're angry, or
Yeah.
you want to do those sorts of things. I get it that you are angry. We do not slam doors in this house. However, there are other things we can do when we are angry.
So in that moment, once we've articulated this and we've reached this point, in that moment, uh, of course, you could even ask your child, is it okay to leave the child alone to deal with it? Will that
Yeah,
also?
it depends. Okay. It depends on the age of the child.
Mhm.
So you then say to them, look, what again, you might, if you haven't, so if this was the first or second time you were doing it, you might say to them, look, I've got some bubble wrap in the cupboard, or I've got pens, or it depends. If they can access the things that are going to help them calm down in a healthy manner, then yes, by all means, leave them alone.
Mhm.
But if they can't access it, or because what you're then setting them up is if they haven't got access to those things, they can't get that out anyway. So they might start throwing things around a room, or
Mhm.
doing things like that. So that's the sort of stuff, is if they have had practice at it before, then yes, by all means, if they have had practice at it before and they have access to those items, then yes, you could leave them alone. It's not a problem.
Great. So, in the interest of time, we will take one or two, episodes of,
Yeah.
So, one incident, um, I think we've probably talked about this, but we'll probably redo for the interest of our audience. Like,
Mhm.
my daughter gets stuck in, the rights and the wrongs.
Mhm.
Um, Ma'am said that, do not talk in class, and yet everybody was talking. And she gets visibly upset about it, to the extent that, after even 5 years, 5 hours later, when she comes back home, this is what she's going to tell you. How was school? It was not good because ma'am said not to talk in class, but yet everybody else was talking. So obviously, if she remembers it for 5 hours, meaning it has had an impact on her. And I struggle to tell her that, it's okay. This is what children do. Yes, we should listen. You're right. But sometimes when there are so many children, they do like to talk. So how I want to bring her to a point of, accepting aberrations.
Mhm. So what you could possibly do, again, I don't have a piece of paper. Oh, do I have a piece of paper? Yes, I certainly do. I'll see if I've got see if we can draw it and for you. So what I do is draw two concentric circles. So the first one
The circle
and
of
then a bigger
influence you're
one.
talking.
Yes. So basically, this is circle of what we could say is a circle of influence and circle of concern, but this is circle of control. What I say is what I can control. So what I can control is in the middle. What I can't control is the outside circle.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can say to her, what you can control is this, is if you talk, or you can control what you think about. You can control your words. You can control your actions. You can control those sorts of things. What you can't control is what other people do, what other people say, what other people think, other people's behavior. So those are the things you can't control. Therefore, if you can't control them, you can only look at what you can control. If you're doing the right thing, if ma'am says you've got to be quiet, that's all you can control. So we then have to look at and go, you know what? I can't do anything about that. And you can talk to her because we've all lived through COVID.
Mm.
You can say, you know what? We covered our noses when we coughed, or we did all of these things. We could control it. We can't control other people's behavior. All we can do is control ours. So it's again, because we've lived through that, we can teach our children, that's what we can control. We can't control other people talking. If it's bothering you, or if you can't hear ma'am, you need to tell her that. You need to tell your teacher that I can't hear you because these teachers are talking. So that's one thing you can control. If you can't learn because they're talking,